I want to welcome Gary from New Jersey. Gary, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. You're on with, of course, yours truly, and also with Jerry Hutton, Dr. Hutton, and with Rich Kolodziej. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you back in the house, Gary.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Bobby. Actually, we were talking about this very issue the other day on my show on PalTalk, and the issue of natural gas vehicles came up. Now, a couple problems, aren't there? One, in terms of the capacity for the fuel. Secondly, there's, to my knowledge, only Honda makes a Civic that is natural gas, but I'm told I can probably convert a car if I wanted to. But I think the biggest problem is, where do you get the fuel?
Rich, would you, and let me remind everyone that we do have a hard break right now.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
I want to welcome everyone back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic, an energy show today, a special energy show, alternative, renewable, sustainable, all of the buzzwords that we've all heard so much about. And I'm not sure that you folks are at ease with asking your questions, but I would ask that you do rethink where we are with our fossil fuels, where we are with the oil spill in the Gulf, where we are with the fact that we export 600,000, and Jerry, you and I were talking about this last evening at dinner, $600,000 a minute,
Right.
which is $1 billion a day. On the phone with us is Rich Kolodziej, who is the president of NGV, Natural Gas Vehicles of America, and Gary Baumgarten. And Gary also was with CNN for some 10 years as a news anchor and hosts his own show daily on PalTalk. Gary, your question of Rich, let's go back there, and then Rich, if you would so kindly take over and let's move forward.
Okay, the question was, where are you going to get the fuel? Well, actually, there were two questions in there. One is, where are you going to get the fuel, and where are you going to get the vehicles?
Exactly.
The fuel is, that issue comes up all the time. One of the reasons we're going with a focus on the fleets early in the growth of this industry is because many of the fleets, the vast majority of fleets, are return-to-home vehicles. They go out in the day, they do their job, they come back either to a depot or a parking lot or at least in an industrial park where one station can serve that fleet as well as other fleets. And this way, you can put in one station and serve all those vehicles. We have 180,000 gasoline stations in the United States. We can't replicate that, certainly not in the short term. Now, the average mom and pop, they may want to feel that they don't want to be restricted by staying in one place, in one community area. But if a fleet goes out and does that, many of those vehicles come back to a common location. So that's one set of vehicles. There are another set of vehicles called point-to-point vehicles. There are tens of thousands of big trucks that do nothing but drive between one city and the other. Los Angeles, San Francisco, and back. New York, Boston, and back. Houston, Dallas, and back, et cetera, et cetera. There, you just need a station at either end to serve those vehicles because, again, they go to a common depot at either end. We're growing the market that way. We're little by little growing a hub of fueling stations within the community, like Los Angeles. Right now in the Los Angeles area, there are over 100 natural gas fueling stations. Well, now we're starting to get individual people, commuters, to say, well, now I'm comfortable getting those vehicles. But that's not how we're building the market. We're going after those fleets first. Then the issue is of the vehicles. Not surprisingly, because we're going after the fleet first, we're now seeing a growing number of fleet vehicles, trucks, buses. Every transit bus manufacturer is now making natural gas buses. Every street sweeper manufacturer is making natural gas buses. Kenworth, Freightliner. You just go down the line. They're now offering natural gas trucks and chassis that are being used for many applications. Step vans for urban deliveries of goods and mail, everything. So we're going after those vehicles. Those manufacturers are now entering the market, and little by little, we're going to be growing so that we can then go after those light-duty vehicles, which, by the way, even the light-duty vehicles, we have a number of conversions. But you're right. Right now, in the United States, only one manufacturer of light-duty vehicles, the Honda Civic, makes a natural gas vehicle. Around the world, they all do. General Motors makes 9 versions of natural gas vehicles somewhere in the world, just not in the United States.
Why don't they? You know, I've always wondered this because Ford Motor Company has these great diesel vehicles in Europe, but they don't make them available here in the United States. If General Motors is making natural gas vehicles or manufacturing them for consumption by the general public elsewhere, why don't they make it available to the American public as well?
If I may, Gary, I'd like to, this is some new information that Boston just approved new taxi cabs. And of course, when you think of taxis, you think of the classic Chevrolet and the LTD Ford because of the trunk, and the Lincolns because of the big trunk area. And I'll give you the latest. Ford Motor Company came out with what's called a Transit Connect. And the Transit Connect is an electric vehicle that's a minivan that's used, can be used in municipalities like, Rich, you were talking about, mail carriers that would go, in other words, all those cars go back to the barnyard at the end of the day and get charged. Well, Ford took that same Transit Connect and has made a new taxi cab to displace and replace. And, Gary, this is directly related to your question about OEMs. Taxi cabs, and they actually move the rear seat back 3 inches for added leg room. They have the vinyl floors and seats, which, by the way, many municipalities require the vinyl floors, and I didn't really know that. I guess we can turn the hose on and wash it out. Who knows? Yeah. But the bottom line, here's how they become available. And, Rich, this is very interesting to me, and Gary addresses your question. They're available in either compressed natural gas or liquid propane versions, and they're on sale May the 3rd. So they're already on the market from Ford Motor Company. And I see that Rich Kolodziej from Ohio is joining us. I would imagine he may have something.
Can I just clarify that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a little bit confusing the way they did the announcement. They're not going to be offering natural gas or propane versions. What they're going to do is make a natural gas or propane-ready vehicle. That is, the engine will have hardened valves and other things that you need to have for natural gas. And then there's a number of companies that have already announced they'll do aftermarket conversions. But Ford itself will not be making those vehicles as propane or natural gas.
Well, it was misleading because that's exactly how it was positioned to me in the news release. We're saying a week ago.
Yeah, I know. I read the same release, and I read it 3 times, and then we called Ford, and they said, no, that's not what we're going to do.
Well, there you go.
In the right direction.